Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada. In this episode, we speak with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon about nutrition and its impact on metabolism and other health factors.
Sounds great.
That'd be perfect.
You guys sounded really articulate. So I've listened to a couple of them and they're just really great.
Wow, that's nice.
Well, we're good at faking it.
We are.
Sure.
I mean, damn, no one's ever said
Good
that.
job.
I'll take it.
I'm gonna go back and look up articulate.
Articulate. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? But yeah, well, listen. So, want to start with a little intro? She left.
Yeah, I mean, Don knows you better than I do, obviously. And if you could give me some background on how you started and just kind of transition into what you're doing right now and what excites you in terms of topic areas, that'd be great.
So I am a functional medicine physician, but my training and background are vitamin, mineral metabolism and nutritional sciences. So I did my undergraduate in nutritional sciences. One of my mentors, my godmother, was one of the original functional medicine thought leaders. So her name is Liz Lipsky, and she was one of the original founders of this whole movement of kind of holistic medicine. So when I went into medical school and had that trajectory in mind, I came at it from a very different perspective. It was all about exercise, it was all about fitness, and it was all about nutrition. So I did an undergraduate in nutritional sciences, and then I did medical school, which was osteopathic school, and that relates to musculoskeletal health and really incorporating the whole picture. And after that, I did 2 residencies and a fellowship. I did 2 years in psychiatry, and then I did 3 years in family medicine. And then I went to WashU and did a postdoc in nutritional sciences and obesity medicine and cognition. And the whole while I was competing in fitness and figure and really into the whole kind of fitness scene.
I'm smiling. I'm smiling.
I never talk about that. It's not something that I ever talk about, but with Don being co-hosting this podcast, I couldn't leave that out.
No, I love it. I mean, it is interesting because you have come from this medical side and you brought this, this aesthetics background, which, it is, we got to think about. I mean, vanity is still a big part of this equation. I mean, people, they still want to look good. I wish people would focus more on functioning to, as you always say, optimally. I think to get people to function optimally, I think all this extra stuff that they're looking to have, the abs, the high energy levels, the rest that will improve, but they don't. But that's kind of, I guess that's been your mission, correct? So fine for you. Like, what are they doing? Someone's coming through the door. What are they coming to you for?
It depends. I really see a few different clientele. I have the elite athlete, the elite military operator, and they're coming for a very different need. And that's really about longevity, performing under high stress situations and being able to maintain that performance over a period of time, talking years and really going through their ebb and flow cycles. And then a large part of my population is those with metabolic dysfunction, over fat, under muscled, or really looking to optimize their metabolism and hormonal status. One of the great things with you, Don, is that you look amazing. And one of the reasons you look amazing is that not only do you train hard, but you have all these other aspects, all these other domains in your life that looking great is a byproduct of your nutrition, of being really smart with the xenoestrogens, of having your sleep dialed in and having your mind frame right. I mean, you're probably the most positive person ever.
You. That's nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll definitely, that's a big compliment coming from you.
But if you think about it, there's psychoimmunology, right? So it's not just the stress hormones and the external stress, but it's also that internal stress that really definitely affects the metabolism when you think about cortisol, estrogen, testosterone. Those things are it's all interrelated.
I love how this is flowing right now. I mean, I just got off a phone call with, I want to say it was either, I've been doing a lot of press with Blake Lively the last 24 hours because of a post that she did. And they've been really diving in on, what they want her nutrition program, and they want to know what their natural questions. What I think the toughest thing for me to get across to them is that, Blake, not to name drop, the approach that we really took with her is trying to get her energy level, trying to get just how she feels day in, day out optimal. And to do that, we had to make sure that things like sleep and nutrition, and we weren't restricting her all these calories that she needed, that her body needed, you know, for her babies, for herself. And I feel like, and I've gotten to know you very well over the last couple of years. Obviously, I think really highly of you, and you're
a very good friend of mine. Yes,
and I appreciate that. But you're one of the few people on the planet I will go to bounce nutrition, hormonal ideas off of. That sounded right, but it's very difficult to tell people out there that, you know, we want to heal from within. I mean, they still don't get that. And but when you actually look at the bloods in front of you, when you actually look at a blood panel and you see that you're deficient in certain areas, and it's not always as easy as just injecting someone with vitamin D. Like, well, why is the vitamin D not there? Why is the testosterone low? And you can get into this stuff, you know, testosterone will replace testosterone. No, there's other things that need to be improved first. And I feel like that if you improve those things, and so do you, then this whole big picture gets improved. But people just, they have a difficult time digesting that. Do you find that's the case?
Oh, well, of course. It's the medical model that we live in. It's very system based. So is your testosterone low? Is, you know, your glucose high? Do you have extra body fat? Are you sleeping poorly? Rather than it all being this interwork of things that are connected, separate, right? It's not this holistic approach. And when I say holistic, I don't mean kind of out there. I mean the whole body functioning as a one unit. And I think people are starting to move in that direction because they're not getting better otherwise. So for example, my elite military guys, a lot of them just want to take testosterone, and I'm going to focus on my testosterone levels. But what they don't think about is it's actually not about the testosterone in the blood. It's actually about the receptors. It's never about the testosterone in the blood. It's always about how well are their receptors responding. So having high T is great, but if your receptors are saturated and you have tachyphylaxis, which is that the testosterone you require to function even at a normal level needs to be raised, it's not just one thing. Is my whole point about that.
So how do you feel that conversation? Do you feel that's something where people immediately get it and it clicks with you because you are their doctor and you're someone that they're coming to confide in? Or do you really feel like it's kind of a tug of war?
It's a total tug of war. I have to convince them that more is not better, and it's not just about testosterone. It's not just about this one thing. And it's a challenge. I'm sure you see that with your trainers. I mean, we've worked on tons of people together, and they get into the habit of they want to do high intensity cardio, or they want to do this one thing, and that's what they're going to keep doing.
Right.
And it might not be the best thing.
You must see a lot of that. I mean, Derek works with elite sprinters. I mean, sprinters of all levels, correct?
Different sports, yeah. And there's a quote I put up all the time when I begin a presentation. It says, "Great sport begins where good health ends." And
totally agree with that.
And
I totally agree with that.
I want to get your opinion on how do you balance those things out when you have to, you have to force people to do things that they're uncomfortable with and put them in situations where they may not be healthy. How do you manage that? That's
a really great question, and something that very few people have asked me or talk about. And Don is actually a great example. There is, and don't take this the wrong way, Don, there is a genetic variability that separates those from being excellent and then those that can just be elite. My SEALs are incredibly resilient. They could, you know, there's a genetic difference, right? So all your elite athletes, the ones that are going to really be the outstanding ones, they're all outstanding. But then that top 0.1%, you can do everything right. You can have two people that are doing everything right, but their genetic capacity to perform under physiological stress, I'm not talking about mental. So for example, when I look at guys that are going into buds and I do all their blood work, I'll see some guys that with very similar physiques, one guy's DHEA is through the roof. His inflammatory markers are through the roof. And another guy, his testosterone is on point. His thyroid is on point. And it's just, there's a genetic variability.
Do you think a lot of that's just borne out by natural selection? So you put a whole bunch of people in a group and then those people work their way to the top and that's how it is?
Well, yeah. And going back to what you're saying about good health, good or elite sport begins where good health ends is so true. And the guys that can really perform and last are those guys that have a genetic capacity to do it. Maybe they're good detoxifiers. You know, it's challenging. So what do you do to help optimize these guys? I've started doing a lot of genetic testing and running it through a program called Opus 23. It's still really fringe and not the standard of care yet, but it gives us, it's very crude at the moment because we're so early on in the science, but you take individuals and you run them through, you get their genetic data and then run it through algorithms, and it will show you what nutrients their genes will respond to. Again, it's not 100% accurate, but it's the closest that we've had. And I've had really good results with that.
What are you seeing? So when you're able to customize, I mean, so this is just where you're getting, again, dialing it in and customizing the program for that individual. So you're sending out for this test, and then you're getting all this data back, and then you're able to turn around. And can you give me an example of what you'd have to kind of customize or curate in reference to diet? Is it more like how much carbohydrates, proteins, fats that they're consuming, or does it go way beyond that?
Goes way beyond that. I think that dialing in macronutrients is, of course, very variable, but we have good nutritional sciences. There's good data, and then you can move the needle either way depending on the macronutrients. But what this does is this will show me, for example, if I'm an elite operator, or even if I have your average individual that's, say, not losing weight and doing everything right, and it's more than just hormones. Let's say they have issues with adiponectin, which is it's a cytokine, it's an adipokine released from fat tissue. Let's say their receptors are saturated or they've got a receptor dysfunction. I can run it through a program and I can see that resveratrol will help upregulate this receptor. So for example, resveratrol might work fantastic for me, and Derek and Don, it might not work at all for you. So I can actually look at what nutrients and what herbs, what things can actually modulate your cellular function.
Interesting. This is incredible. Now I've been getting asked these questions a lot, and this is something that you and I said we were going to discuss, but unfortunately I haven't seen you till now, which is both of our faults. But I would love to get your opinion and kind of go a little back and forth, get into a little bit of dieting right now, and discuss the two hot trends right now. And it's funny because they've been around for a long time, but you see these Instagram sensations who have to sell a product or sell something. And I'm not bashing it because I believe there is a place for them in specific people's lives, but we got to get into keto and we got to get into IF a little bit. So ketogenic dieting and intermittent fasting. I'd love to start with keto because I was just with Dr. Perlmutter, who wrote Grain Brain. He has a whole doctor formulated line, and he is a big proponent of ketosis. And he believes that this is a protocol you'd follow for an anti-Alzheimer's protocol. You would take this if you have cancer in your family or you didn't want cancer. Obviously, who wants cancer to spread in the body? But stating that cancer will not spread if you're in ketosis, and all these valuable bits of information that I think are incredible. I think they could be life-changing for a lot of people, yet they aren't using them for that reason. They're using them for weight loss. So someone's coming in, trying to get themselves into ketosis from Monday to Friday, which most of the time they're not, and they think they are. And they're going back into that yo-yo lifestyle. So when I've turned around in the past, and if I've ever come off bashing the ketogenic diet, it wasn't that I was bashing. I was just saying there's a specific individual that I don't think it should go for because they're not there yet to where they're going to get themselves into ketosis and maintain that. Their weekday to weekend is too much of this volatile roller coaster. So can you get into keto a little bit and go through some of the science and educate our listeners?
Absolutely. So before we do that, I think it's really important to have a goal. So everyone has a diet in mind, but the question is, what is the end metabolic goal? If you are looking to starve cancer, then that's one goal. If you are looking to prevent Alzheimer's, that's another goal. If you are looking for optimal body composition and weight loss, that is an entirely different goal. So ketogenic diet originally started with seizures, and it was initially utilized for children that had seizures, and this physician put these kids on a high-fat diet and restricted everything, and he noticed that their seizures went away. So that's where the origin of it came from. In terms of ketogenic diet, it's really utilizing fat for fuel. And I think all your listeners are pretty savvy to that. Let's talk about who, from a practical level, it works for. and this goes back to what you're saying. I've been in practice for quite some time, my own private practice for 3 years. I also ran a weight management clinic at WashU, which is a pretty prestigious place. And we saw tons of diets come through. And I will tell you this, for a ketogenic style diet, which is 70% fat, it works very well for men. Of course, we're not looking at performance. It is muscle sparing. It works really well for men because they have higher testosterone. I don't know if you've ever seen a female do well on a ketogenic diet. I have never seen one do well over 3 weeks.
Wow.
Have you guys had that?
I had, now that I'm thinking about the answer is no. And to be honest with you, I haven't really been able to see a woman get herself into ketosis yet. Most of the
Totally
people
agree.
most of the women that I've spoken to who've done it thought they were doing it for a period of time. And then I've asked them, well, how do you know you're in ketosis? They're like, well, I'm just doing the diet. I'm like, no. You got to go pee on ketone strips and there's this process. And they were never able to get themselves to that point. So to be honest, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, I'm probably missing something, but I don't know if I've seen a woman for a period of time get herself into ketosis.
I have never. And I have never seen it be effective without tremendous repercussions. Right. They metabolically respond totally different. And I think that we don't know the science well enough to know why that is. And if you look at the data in the literature, there's a lot of scientists that promote ketogenic diet, which it can be great. Again, what is the end in mind? If you look at the studies, they're almost all male studies.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So Volek and Finney are two really big researchers, and they've got great data out there. They're really solid, scientists, but their stuff is very geared towards men. So for ketogenic, so the bandwagon for ketogenic diet, anything extreme usually doesn't work. That being said, you and I both eat what is considered to be a high protein diet. Right. And that people would say that is extreme. My argument would be that our fundamental understanding of protein is wrong. Where those recommendations have come from are from 1942, World War II soldiers. We've extrapolated this data, and that's how we understand our protein needs. I don't know how many individuals that you counsel end up saying, wow, Don, that's a lot of protein. I don't know if I can eat that much.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I mean, it's, if anything, I know with myself, I'm victim at times. I think I probably consume a little too much. And I played with it around for this last shoot that I got ready for, where, I went into it doing 275 grams a day, which I still think is high. I mean, I'm 210 pounds. So what are you looking at there? About 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. That's probably the rough math on it. How high do you typically like to go?
Depends on what the goal is. Again, the goal is, what are we looking for? So if you're doing a period of calorie restriction, and you need to maintain your lean tissue, that's perfectly fine. Right. The data goes up to 3.4 grams per kilogram is safe. There's never been, if you have healthy kidneys, there's never been a negative study regarding protein. It's a very emotional topic because it has a face. It's the only macronutrient that can be very emotional for people. Nobody argues about fat. Nobody gets super emotional about sustainability when it comes to fat or carbohydrates. But when it comes to animal-based products, it becomes a very big issue. And it's really skewed our perspective of the choices that we make. So is that too high for you? Absolutely not. For what you were doing? No way. Right. And you looked amazing. So clearly you did something right.
I feel good, which is obviously we're talking about most important. So most people getting themselves or thinking they're getting themselves into ketosis that aren't. I mean, if you're trying to figure out what they're doing, I mean, it's almost like they're almost doing an Atkins diet, aren't they? I mean, they're almost doing a high protein, high fat, no carbohydrate diet, which in my opinion is partially the reason why they're probably yo-yoing so much. I mean, how many people have you met with? And Derek, I'm sure yourself, I mean, you work with a lot of athletes, but you've come in contact with people who've had, a bad weekend or a bad few weeks. And suddenly they're like, I'm going no carbs on Monday. And then I'm sitting there rolling my eyes going, there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. Like there's good protein and there's bad protein, good fats and bad fats. Like let's be careful about what they say. And then they spend the next 4 or 5 days losing 6-7 pounds. Right. And then they go, they're depleting their body of all this water and all these carbs. And then they're going and they're having this crappy meal or weekend. And it's just like this vicious cycle. And I think besides what it's doing to the body, I think emotionally, I mean, that is a
Absolutely.
grind. I mean, I've never really had to go through that because I understand this, and I know that if I have a week away, I'm going to be in Disney next weekend with my family. I'm going to try and work out a couple of days and scale down, and and I'm going to go out to dinner, and I'm going to try and eat some things, and I'm just going to try and relax about it. And I know when I get back that following week, it's back on my plan, it's back on what I need to do, and I'm not even going to look at the scale. I know in a period of time, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to be back to where I want to be. But to have to go through that cycle week in and week out, and I don't know if a lot of our listeners can connect with that. How difficult is that going to be? I mean,
it is emotionally, but let's talk about metabolically. What happens?
Yes.
Everybody focuses on the quantity of weight loss and not the quality. So as you age, every time you do that, you destroy muscle tissue. If you continue to do that over a period of time, muscle is the metabolic engine, right? It's the organ of longevity. Muscle is responsible for resting metabolic rate. It's responsible for glucose disposal, and it's responsible for fat oxidation. Every single time you yo-yo diet, you lose and destroy muscle tissue. Hence, you destroy a little piece of your metabolism. If you continue to do that over a period of time, as you age, it becomes much more difficult to then maintain the integrity of your muscle. You are going to become skinny fat, flabby.
I was just about to say that word. You just stole it from me.
Sorry.
Okay.
You become skinny fat over a period of time and anabolic resistant. So what that means is as you age, you are setting yourself up for complete physical failure and emotional failure. And you're wondering why you get diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high lipids, hypertension. All of it relates to the muscle. So it starts in the muscle. You destroy this tissue. Everybody thinks of muscle tissue as just the architecture of our body, but it's the infrastructure. It is responsible for every major metabolic process going forward.
We better be careful as we're all, I mean, listen, there's one thing we all have in common here, there, everywhere is we're all aging. We're all every second we're getting a little older, and we have to protect that. I mean, I always say I want body armor. Like I want when I'm working with an 80-year-old, like if I'm working with someone right now, I want them to be under 80. I want them to have as much body armor as possible. Granted, they can use it properly. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So this is all great stuff. And, just to kind of give our viewers a little stat, but I remember years ago when I really opened my eyes to this, probably at least more than a decade ago. God, it's probably almost 2 decades ago at this point. I remember they did a study on a bunch of 100-pound models, roughly 100-pound models who had absolutely terrible eating habits and were starving themselves. And it basically came back that they were, the majority of them were actually obese at around the range of 100 to 120 pounds. And you look at these girls and say, how are they obese? Obesity is really about body fat. And they had such poor eating habits, and they were missing meals, and they weren't getting enough protein. They weren't exercising, doing all these things, that they literally destroyed the muscle in their body, where they had over an obesity. What's obesity? It's over 30% body fat. So think about that. So 30 pounds of their body weight was fat. Like that's extraordinary. So we got to be careful. It's not always, like you just said, it's not always what we look like aesthetically, but it's that infrastructure. And we need to establish that infrastructure to have a long life vitality.
Yeah. It's interesting. Everyone focuses on being over fat and adiposity and obesity as the problem. That is a external manifestation of the real problem of being under muscled. It is a byproduct. Being under muscled is the main issue. I mean, insulin resistance and diabetes and Alzheimer's, I know that Perlmutter, that's type 3 diabetes of the brain. That starts years before. Insulin resistance starts in your muscle years before it manifests in your blood, years before it manifests as diabetes. Muscle is where all of these issues can be prevented.
Yeah, so many people are so afraid to put on muscle. They just hear those words, especially, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of the women I come in contact with, I want to get bigger. And you understand, I mean, you're a fitness fanatic. I mean, there's not too many people who train the way that you train, but women need to, take a little bit more of an approach. They need to go into the gym, and they need to focus on putting on muscle. And listen, if I could take one of our ambassadors downstairs that do this for a living, and they have to go and they have to model and they have to be, on camera, and you know, if you took a little bit of a different approach with them and focused on putting on muscle, they're not going to get bigger. I mean, you'd have to include,
Right. So hard.
And you can get into that a little bit, correct?
Well, I mean, putting on muscle is tremendously difficult. The
How
more
much
well-trained.
How much muscle for a natural person? We're not talking about a bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder, but if someone was to put on how much muscle a year, that would be extraordinary.
That is, I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. I think it is incredibly variable on what kind of training they're doing and what their status is. I mean, I can tell you in my clinic, I have untrained women who I have put them on a program. They go see a trainer. They're dialed in with their nutrition. They could easily they could come back within a month and have put on 2 or 3 pounds of muscle. That's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, I've seen for untrained people, I might have seen statistics like that. But if you're taking, you know, a man in his 30s who's coming in here, and if we can do, I would always say 5 to 7 pounds of muscle almost a year. I thought like muscle, like I'm not talking about, you know, when I trained
extra fat fluff. Yeah.
No, I mean, people get confused. When I trained Hugh Jackman for Wolverine years ago, we took him from the boy from Oz when he was 170 pounds or 175 pounds, trained him for, 6 months. And they're suddenly saying, oh, Hugh put on 30 pounds of muscle. I'm like, no, you didn't put in 30 pounds of muscle. He put on, small
right.
that muscle and the rest, but he looked like he was carrying muscle. So I think there's this misconception on how much muscle we can or can't put on, but I would tell
it's very hard.
Yeah.
And your nutrition, your protein distribution over time, and the quality of your training and effort of your training needs to be really dialed in.
And it takes us in a different direction, but things that come up a lot, even just in the general population, are food allergies. And what can we do from a dieting point of view or even a physical training point of view to deal with some of these things? And I know a lot of people that are getting into middle age and they're like, I can't eat this anymore. I can't eat that.
Right.
I have this. What's your take on that? What's happening there?
The good perspective on that is not about the food. It's about the root cause. Exactly what you said. Why is it happening? And typically it's not the food. It's really having what we would think of as a leaky gut, as really gut inflammation. So if the integrity of the lining is a little inflamed, it creates this permeability. And so when you ingest certain foods, then those particles or those pieces from the food go into the bloodstream, and the body attacks it and recognizes it as foreign. So you begin to develop allergies over a period of time, and then they increase. Because now it's really that permeability and not the individual food. So over a period of time, they're going to have to keep rotating their foods. And that's because whether they've got a parasite or they've really just spent time being really inflamed, all the health really systemic health begins in the gut.
That's interesting because a lot of the time they'll just try to narrow it down to I can only eat these 3 things, and then they just keep doing that. Yeah.
That's always a red flag to me that they need to do some serious gut healing. Really major gut repair.
What was that? I'm sorry. What was the red flag? If someone's eating the same foods over and over, or if they're eating it because their stomach gets irritated by.
Yes. So they've now started to cut back on their foods because everything is making them feel bad, or they're having a reaction to these foods. It's an immediate red flag. Or even if someone comes in and tells me more than 3 foods or even more than 2 foods that they're reacting to. And I'm not saying, sometimes people say, well, if I eat milk or dairy, I don't feel well. I'm talking about things you would never think of. If I eat mango, I don't feel well. If I eat, you name it, beef, it makes my tongue swell, or I just don't feel well. Right. Things that are just not your normal irritants like soy, eggs, peanuts, milk.
Interesting.
How do you diagnose that correctly, though? That seems
patient history. So patient history is a big one. And also a lymphocyte reactivity assay can help. And that's called an LRA test. And that's available in very few places. But
did you say LRA test?
LRA test, lymphocyte reactivity assay.
Okay, I thought I took that test.
Maybe we should go take it.
Wait, I thought I took it, though. I don't know.
Don, we did have one patient that took it. And it was interesting because he came up with a tremendous amount of allergies, and it was foods that he was eating all the time. It was tomatoes, peppers, basil. He was Italian, and he really ate and loved all those foods, and his body was incredibly inflamed from it.
Right. All right. I remember that test. How about an ALCAT test? Isn't that something as similar? Or it's not as in depth.
No, so that's not as in depth. And also, when something comes back positive on ALCAT test, it's usually typically the food someone has been eating a lot. And to me, it just shows that they just have gut inflammation. And it's not a very sensitive test. So
you can technically eat the same foods over and over if you paid close attention to your digestion and your gut, and you did all those things that you need to do. So it's normally really about how your whole digestive system comes into play, is why they speak about the rotation diet as being so important.
Rotation diet is good for a number of reasons. Rotation diet exposes you to different nutrients every fourth day, which is really great. And it also, foods are medicine, foods are chemistry. And it's, when you ingest it, they have different substances, and the body can become very overloaded depending on many, many, many things in our environment, our internal hormonal milieu, whatever it is. So doing a rotation diet can be tremendous for people because, for example, let's say there's certain starches in a sweet potato that people are reacting to, or there's something in the squash. By eating the same thing every day, and as people that are really into, we're creatures of habit, so we tend to eat the same thing every day, it can actually overload the body, especially if the body already has an impaired immune system or impaired digestion, then you're now overloading it. So if you take a break and you rotate, then you have a much better chance.
How often do you think you have? I mean, I know, just speaking personally, I was, I feel like aesthetically, I really got the best control over my body over the last couple months, because I almost got away from a rotation diet, which I've always been into. And I've always believed in that for the exact reasons why you're saying. I've always looked at my week as saying, how many different nutrients can I get? How many different fruits, vegetables, and trying to stick with things that are in season, and always just going for this feeling. But I also found out that my body was never able to kind of catch up and get past a specific point that I wanted, because I was always tricking it. So what I decided to do was almost get a little boring for a 5-week period of time and consume the exact same foods and rotate, little things like chicken, steak, turkey, but the veggies stayed pretty consistent. The carbohydrates stayed pretty consistent. And I was able to get my body to a point that, without dropping my carbohydrate level, I've never been able to get to. It was the leanest I've ever gotten to while consuming, 300 plus grams of carbs a day. It was actually 300 grams a day, which was amazing. Which was a decent amount. But, then I started thinking after that, wait a second, how much time now is that going to start working against me? It's been about 6-7 weeks. I've gotten my carbohydrates up a lot higher. I'm consuming some different fruits, kind of implementing some things in a little bit differently, but haven't caused a big shock to the body where I've completely switched things up. Is there a time frame if someone is dieting hard, but dieting the right way, the safe way, without eliminating carbohydrates, that someone should be kind of switching up food sources? And like you said, potatoes, or it doesn't really matter?
I think that you're going to know it. I think it does matter, but I think it's based on an individual response. I think it's for you, who knows, you could have been deficient in something in sweet potatoes. So by having all those extra nutrients specifically from that one plant could have really helped you out. Could have been exactly what you needed. All right. So it's really about listening to your body and being in tuned enough to really pay attention.
I love it. All right. Last big question that I have, we still haven't gone into intermittent fasting now.
Yes, you and I we have gone back and forth about this.
Well, I'm reading a lot on it, and I'm giving my point because I want the doctor to come in after to kind of correct me. But my thought process on was, again, it depends on your goal. I know it's the first thing that you're going to say.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, but what I'm finding is that a lot of people who are actually lazy with their dieting are implementing it because it's a quick fix.
That's and they don't, do.
Right. Well, they don't have to eat. Well, how about this? Let me just not eat. My last meal's at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'm just going to fast. Or, you know what? I'm coming back from Vegas and I partied all weekend and I'm going to start fasting. My belief is that, like you said, food is medicine. And if we're restricting that food that we need to help heal the body, then the body's not going to heal. We're actually going to put it into even more of a deficit, even more of a harmful state. And that's something that I believe that wasn't great. Now, for someone like yourself or someone like me that were pretty dialed in, I believe there's a lot of benefits for IF, intermittent fasting, that can help us with giving our digestive system a break, potentially
Totally.
hormonally, body composition. I think there's all this great stuff. So that's kind of where I was coming from. But the majority of people out there, they want to dive into it because of laziness. And I wanted to get your opinion on it. Get into the science of it.
Let's talk about some of the science of intermittent fasting.
Love it.
The data is actually really, really good on time-restricted feeding. And I'll tell you why. Because the body works on a circadian rhythm. And so so that means the liver enzymes turn over at a certain time, the stomach lining turns over at a certain time. And chaotic eating at random times, starving yourself and not eating, can really start these clocks at the wrong time. And it actually can really disrupt metabolism. So intermittent fasting, they started doing the research because they were looking for alternative ways to help people's metabolic function. Right? And they did the original data based on shift work individuals. So what they did is they would have two groups, and they did the original studies in rats. They did two groups of rats. They did one group of rats where they were on their regular sleep-wake cycle. And then they flip-flopped the sleep-wake cycle of the second group, and they fed them the exact same thing. And what they found is those that were on the off sleep cycle and the off eating patterns became diabetic, insulin resistant, and gained a ton of weight. And they were both fed kind of crappy high fat diets, but the people that the rats that were restricted in their feeding and ate the exact same thing actually became weight resistant. So they were able to have better metabolic markers just by restricting their feeding window.
Wow. So how often so again, it depends on your goal, but let's talk about yourself. Let's talk about yourself. How often do you throw it in personally?
I tend to like intermittent fasting. So the question is, why would I like that? Intermittent fasting can be so let's say, number one, what is the goal? So if individuals want to lose weight, it depends on where they're at. So for an individual who wants to lose weight and maintain muscle, they can definitely do an intermittent fasting protocol of 8 to 9 hours. And they can either do it from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or from 12 to 8 p.m. The athletes that I train that want to do a protocol, which are not very many, you can do it 2 days a week. So they could do it 2 days a week. I start them at 8 because you want to start with muscle protein synthesis right off the bat, right? So their first meal, they have a meal right in the morning, and that's 30 to 50 grams of protein, depending on when that is. And then you stop them at 4 p.m. That can be really great because then it allows them to train in a low glycogen state, which can be phenomenal for body composition. For women, I know you see a lot of women, for women that are, say, leptin resistant or overweight and have some body fat to lose, those women really benefit from a 24-hour fast.
Wow.
One day a week.
One
day a week.
Yeah, see, I think that's safe. And I think that's fine.
Of course.
I wasn't sure what you thought about the people doing it day in and day out, like not the 24-hour, but IF 16 hours off, 8 hours.
Should not do it every day.
So you think
do it 3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Maximum 3 days a week. Max.
But
and this is
24-hour fast you believe in once a week is beneficial.
I do.
Do you do that yourself or no?
I don't. Okay.
Just don't feel
so no. I mean, so let's talk about who should do intermittent fasting and why.
Sure.
So if they're going to do intermittent fasting and it's for optimizing body composition or lowering chronic inflammation, I think is better. I think for optimizing body composition, it's not ideal because we know that muscle is the organ of longevity, and to stimulate muscle tissue, you should not be in these long fasting states. You and I have talked about that, especially for performance. It's really counterproductive and counterintuitive.
Right.
But if you are in an inflamed state and you are really having a difficult time jumpstarting your metabolism, then starting with 1 day a week of time-restricted feeding, which is eating within an 8-hour window, an 8 to 9 hour window once a week, is a great place to start. Once you become a metabolic machine and you are now just doing it for inflammation and longevity, you could do it up to 3 days a week. Wow.
And your advice, and I know the answer to this, but I want it to come from the doctor. But if someone's going to turn around and do IF for, the 16 off, 8 on, they shouldn't, just because they just fasted for 16 hours doesn't give them the right to go eating pizza and hamburgers, correct?
You cannot do that. I mean, that would be
or whatever it is. That's where people go overboard, and that's why they're doing it, is because they feel like that's their excuse to kind of cleanse the body and
that's
get it out.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's what we're getting.
And it destroys tissue. So now you're now destroying muscle tissue.
I'm telling you, man, this is refreshing, Dr. G. Pretty incredible stuff. Can you do me a favor? Could you let all the listeners know if they wanted to learn more about you, where they can find you, and where you're at, and what you're doing?
Yep. So they can find me on my website,
Okay.
and that's drgabriellelyon.com.
Okay.
They can find me on Instagram. I tend to be more active on that. Also, drgabriellelyon.com. Facebook, and again, my name, and then the Ash Center website, which is ashcenter.com. And I think that's it.
I think that's it. And also, I want to throw a little spot to your husband, Dr. Anthony Lyon, who I think is absolutely brilliant and one of the nicer guys you're going to meet in the industry. And I think you guys, the husband and wife 1-2 punch. I mean, you're one of the more impressive couples I've seen in this industry. And very good friends of mine. So honored.
We love you.
We love you.
you.
I love you also. And thanks for your time. And I just know out there, everyone who's listening to this, I want them to dive in a little bit more. And it's important to try things, and it's important to experiment with things like IF to find out. I just don't hang your hat so hard on one person's opinion. Make sure that you're doing some research, some science, and understand that just because something is working for someone else and it's working well, doesn't mean that's the ingredient for yourself.
Absolutely. And I always say, never take my word for it. Have them go look at the science yourself. Don't take anyone's words. Learn it yourself.
All right, sweetie. Love you. You're the absolute best. I will give you a call. Any more questions, bud?
No, that's good. I gotta rewatch this now.
Yeah, I'm actually excited. There was a bunch of stuff on keto that you went into, and then IF, which I thought was incredibly interesting. I think we could have done a whole talk on digestion.
Yeah, definitely.
We will next time.
We'll do one next time. I'm forcing you to come on again one day.
You know what we should do is we should go through your bloods on the air, on your podcast.
You want to do that?
We should take your blood and we should go through the markers and what it means.
Why don't we do that? And then we can plug the Ash Center. We can actually have Derek and I can come up there. Maybe the next time you're in town, we can go up there. We can show the process, show what's going on. We can feature the IV treatments a little bit. We can do a whole segment on that.
Sounds great.
We're in. I will give you a call. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.